Welcome to the DIY Honda Garage channel. The DTC P0463 indicates there is a high voltage condition in the fuel level sensor circuit, specifically in the fuel gauge sending unit. This error points to potential problems that may affect the fuel gauge's reliability and accuracy. The components involved include the fuel level sensor, which may be located in the fuel tank and is responsible for measuring the amount of fuel present. The gauge control module processes the sensor readings and displays the fuel level information on the dashboard. When diagnosing this issue, it's essential to identify whether the fault is persistent, confirmed, or intermittent, pending, which is why confirming the DTC status with a Honda Diagnostic System, HDS, is crucial. Resolving this issue helps ensure accurate fuel level readings, contributing to overall vehicle efficiency and safety. To avoid future occurrences of DTC P0463, implementing regular preventive maintenance is paramount. Begin with routine inspections of the wiring related to the fuel gauge and sensor systems, ensuring that any signs of wear, fraying, or corrosion are promptly addressed. Keeping all electrical connections clean and free from dirt or moisture not only prolongs the life of components, but also ensures reliable signal delivery. Additionally, periodically monitor the fuel gauge function as you refuel or during routine vehicle checks, as early detection of discrepancies can lead to preventative action before a fault develops. Being proactive in these areas can enhance the longevity and performance of the vehicle's fuel system. In conclusion, addressing DTC P0463 involves a systematic approach to diagnosing potential issues with the fuel level sensor circuit. Key steps include confirming DTC presence, checking for wire integrity, and ultimately assessing the functionality of both the fuel gauge sending unit and the gauge control module. Accurate fuel readings are crucial for effective vehicle operation, impacting both efficiency and driver safety. Choosing to maintain the fuel system proactively can mitigate risk and ensure seamless performance. By following these guidelines and preventive measures, vehicle owners can maintain a fully operational fuel gauge system, enhancing their driving experience. The DTC P0463 is indicative of a malfunction within the fuel level sensor associated with the fuel gauge sending unit, which can lead to inaccuracies in how much fuel is indicated on the gauge. The fuel gauge sending unit, usually located inside the fuel tank, plays a critical role in sensing the depth of the fuel and converting it into a voltage signal. This voltage signal is then sent to the gauge control module, which interprets the signal and displays the fuel level on the dashboard. If there is a high voltage condition detected, it may suggest either a failure in the sending unit itself or issues within the related circuitry, including poor connections or short circuits. Identifying and isolating the error is important to restore proper functionality and ensure efficient vehicle operation. Several possible causes lead to the DTC P0463 trigger. A faulty fuel level sensor could be the primary suspect, as it directly affects the fuel gauge readings. Bad connections or terminals, including corrosion or loosened wires at the gauge control module and fuel gauge sending unit, can also cause high voltage signals or intermittent failures. An open circuit is another critical issue that can arise, where the wiring between the gauge control module and the fuel level sensor is compromised. Each of these potential issues needs careful examination, as they can affect the accuracy of the fuel gauge and overall engine performance. The symptoms of DTC P0463 encompass erratic behavior in the fuel gauge readings, where the display could fluctuate between empty and full without a corresponding change in fuel level. Often, drivers may notice an inaccurate fuel level indication, leading to potential miscalculation of remaining driving range. Additionally, dashboard warning indicators may illuminate, alerting the driver to a fault in the fuel system. Understanding these symptoms can assist in early diagnosis and prompt preventive actions, reducing the likelihood of running out of fuel unexpectedly or having difficulty refueling. In this initial troubleshooting step for DTC P0463, begin by turning the ignition switch to the on position, which allows the diagnostic tools to access the vehicle's onboard systems. Following this, use the Honda Diagnostic System, HDS, to clear any stored DTCs. This step is crucial as it resets the system, enabling you to observe if the DTC returns. After clearing, wait for 5 seconds to ensure the system stabilizes before checking for any pending or confirmed DTCs with the HDS. If DTC P0463 appears again, you can confirm that the issue is persistent, thus allowing you to proceed with further troubleshooting tasks. Step 2 involves checking for an open wire within the fuel gauge line. Start by turning the ignition switch to lock to ensure safety while handling electrical components. Proceed to remove the gauge control module, which gives access to the connectors necessary for testing. Disengage the fuel tank unit 4P connector and the gauge control module connector A to isolate the circuit you are examining. Use a jumper wire to connect terminal A on the fuel tank unit to body ground, and subsequently check for continuity between specified test points. Confirming continuity will help ascertain whether the circuit is intact or if an open wire exists, which would require repair. In this third troubleshooting step, attention is devoted to the fuel gauge plus line. After disconnecting your previous jumper wire, create a new connection with a jumper wire between terminal A on the fuel tank unit 4P connector and body ground. This action allows you to evaluate the integrity of the fuel gauge plus circuit. Ensure the ignition is still in the locked position to maintain safety while conducting your checks. Following this setup, carefully check for continuity between the gauge control module connection and the body ground. If continuity is confirmed, you can ascertain that there are no faults in this wire, allowing you to proceed with testing the fuel gauge sending unit. The final step in troubleshooting DTC P0463 requires checking the fuel gauge sending unit directly. Remove any jumper wires from the previous checks to prepare for a more detailed examination of the sending unit. Conduct tests on the fuel gauge sending unit to ascertain its functionality, checking for proper performance metrics. If the sending unit performs within expected parameters, the next step is to consider replacing the gauge control module itself, as the integrity of the signal may depend on this component as well. Conversely, if the fuel gauge sending unit is found to be defective, replacement is necessary to restore accurate fuel level readings and ensure vehicle reliability. After completing the troubleshooting and making necessary repairs, it's essential to perform a final verification of the fuel gauge performance. Reconnect the gauge control module and the fuel gauge sending unit to ensure all components are appropriately connected. Power on the ignition and observe the fuel level readings closely to verify their accuracy against measured fuel levels in the tank. Additionally, use the Honda Diagnostic System, HDS, to check if any DTCs are present after the repairs. Successful completion without new or recurring DTCs confirms that the issue has been resolved, leading to reliable performance of the fuel gauge system. Please like and subscribe to the channel. See you next time.